Maccabees 1. Now Philopater, on learning from those who came back that Antiochus had made himself master of the places which belonged to himself, sent orders to all his men and horsemen, took with him his sister Arsinoe, and marched out as far as the pass of Raphia, where Antiochus and his forces encamped, and when Theodotus, intending to carry out his design, took with him the bravest of the army who had been before committed to his trust by Ptolemy, and got through at night to the tent of Ptolemy to kill him on his own responsibility, and so to end the war. But Dositheus, called the son of Trimulus by birth, a Jew afterward a renegade from the laws and observances of his country, conveyed Ptolemy away and made an obscure person lie down in his stead in the tent. It befell this man to receive the fate which was meant for the other. A fierce battle then took place, and the men of Antiochus prevailed. Arsinoe continually went up and down the ranks, and with this level hand and tears and entreaties begged the soldiers to fight manfully for themselves, their children and wives, and promised that if they proved conquerors, she would give them 2 minas of gold apiece. It thus fell out that their enemies were defeated in hand-to-hand encounter, and that many of them were taken prisoners. Having vanquished this attempt, the king then decided to proceed to the neighboring cities and encourage them. By doing this and by making donations to their temples, he inspired his subjects with confidence. The Jews sent some of their council and of their elders to him. The greetings, gifts, and congratulations of the past bestowed by them filled him with the greater eagerness to visit their city. Having arrived at Jerusalem, sacrifice and offer thank offerings to the greatest God, and whatever else was suitable to the sanctity of the place, and entered the inner court. He was so struck with the magnificence of the place, and so wondered at the orderly arrangements of the temple, that he considered entering the sanctuary itself. And when they told him that this was not permissible, none of the nation, nor even the priests in general, but only the supreme high priest of all, then he only once in a year being allowed to go in, he would by no means give away that they read the law to him, but he persisted in obstructing himself and claiming that he ought to be allowed, and saying, be it that they were deprived of this honor, I ought not to be. And he put the question, why? When he entered, all the temple stand of the priests who were present forbade him. He was thoroughly answered by some, but that he did wrong to boast of his. Well, since I have done this, since said he be the cost what it may, shall I not enter with or without your consent? And when the priests fell down in their sacred vestments, imploring the greatest God to come and help in time of need, and to avert the violence of the fierce aggressor, and when they filled the temple with lamentation and tears, then those who had been left behind in the city were scared and rushed forth. Uncertain of the event, virgins who had been shut up within their chambers came out with their mothers, scattering dust and ashes on their heads, and filling the street with outcries. Women but recently separated or left their bridal chambers, left the reserve that benefited them, and went about the city in a disorderly manner. Newborn babes were deserted by the mothers or nurses who waited upon them, some here, some there, in houses or in pews. This now with an order which could not be checked, swarmed into the most high temples, whereas were the prayers offered up by those who assembled in this place on account of the unholy attempt of the king. Along with this, there were some of the citizens who took courage and would not submit to his obstinacy and his intention of carrying out his purpose, calling out to arms and to die bravely in defense of the law of their fathers. They created a great uproar in the place, and were with difficulty brought back by the aged and the elders to the station of prayer which they had occupied before. During this time, the multitude kept on praying. The elders who surrounded the king strove in many ways to divert his haughty mind from the design which he had formed. He, in his hardened mood, insensible to all persuasion, was going onwards with the view of carrying out his design. Yet even his own officers, when they saw this, joined the Jews in and appealed to him, who has all power to aid in the present crisis, and not wing at such overweening lawlessness, such as the frequency and the vehemence of the cry of the assembly crowd, and in this cry a verbal noise ensued, not the men only, but the very walls, and walls seems to sound for all things, preferring dissolution rather than to see the place defiled. Maccabees. Now it was it that the high priest Simon bowed his knees over against the holy place, and spread out his hands in reverence forth, and uttered the following supplication: O Lord, Lord, King of the heavens and ruler of the whole creation, holy among the holy, so Governor Almighty, give ear to us who are oppressed by a wicked and profane one who exalts in his confidence and strength. It is you, the creator of all, the Lord of the universe, who are a righteous governor and judge all who act with pride and insolence. It was you who did destroy the former workers of righteousness, among whom were the giants who trusted in their strength and hardihood by carrying them with a measureless floor. It was you who did make the sodomites, those workers of exceeding iniquity, men notorious for their vices. The example after two of the generations when you did cover them with fire and brimstone. You did make known your power when you caused the bow Paria, the enslaver of your people, to pass through the order of many and diverse inflictions, and you wrote the depths of the sea over him when he made pursuit with chariot and with a multitude of followers, and give a safe passage to those who put their trust in you, the Lord of the whole creation. This saw and felt the works of your hands, and praised you, the Almighty, you, O King, when you created the illimitable and measureless did choose out this city. You did make this place sacred to your name. Albeit you need nothing, you did glorify it with your illustrious presence after constructing it to the glory of your great honorable name. And you did promise out of love to the people of Israel that should we fall away from you and become afflicted, then come to this house and pray, you would hear our prayer. Verily, you are faithful and true, and when you did offer it, our fathers were hard pressed, and in no estate, and delivered them out of great danger, seeing now, Holy King, how through our many and great sins we are borne down and made subject to our enemies, and become weak and powerless, we being in this low condition. This bold and profane man seeks to dishonor this holy place, consecrated out of the earth to the name of your majesty. Your dwelling place to the heaven of heavens is indeed unapproachable to men, but since it seemed good to you to exhibit your glory among your people Israel, did you sanctify this place? Punish us not by means of the uncleanness of their men, nor chastise this by means of their profanity, lest the lawless ones should lose in their rage and exalt in exuberant pride of speech, and say, we have trampled upon the holy house as idolatrous houses that trample upon both up our iniquities, and do away with our errors, and show forth your compassion in this hour, that your mercy quickly go before us. Grant us peace that the cast down and broken hearted may praise you with their mouth. At that time, God who sees all things, who is beyond all holy among the holy, heard that prayer so suitable, and scourged the man greatly uplifted with scorn and insolence, shaking him to and fro, and as a reed is shaken with the wind. He cast him upon the pavement hours, and with limbs paralyzed by a righteous judgment, deprived of the faculty of speech. His friends and bodyguards, beholding the swift recompense which had suddenly overtaken him, struck with exceeding terror, and fearing that he would die, speedily removed him. When in course of time he had come to himself, this severe check caused no repentance within him, but he departed with bitter threatenings. He proceeded to Egypt, who was in wickedness through his before mentioned companions in one who were lost to all goodness, and not satisfied with countless acts of impiety. His audacity so increased that he raised evil reports there, and many of his friends watching his purpose attempted to join in furthering his will. His purpose was to indicate a public statement upon our ways, wherefore he erected a tower at the tower porch and caused the following inscription to be engraved upon it, that entrance to their own temple was to be refused to all those who would not sacrifice, that all the Jews were to be registered among the common people, that those who resisted were to be forcibly seized and put to death, and that those who were thus registered were to be marked on their persons by the ivy leaf symbols of buoyancy, and to be set apart with these limited rights, to do away with the appearance of hating them all, and he had it written underneath that if any of them should under the community of those initiated in the rights, they should have equal rights with the Alexandrians. Some of those who were over the city therefore appropriately approached to the city of piety, unhesitating he gave in to the king, and expected to derive some great honor from a future connection with him. A nobler spirit, however, prompted the majority to cling to their religious observances, and by paying money that they might live unmolested, this sought to escape the registration, cheerfully looking forward to future aid. They abhorred their own apostate, persuading them to be national foes, and debarring them from the common usage of social intercourse. Maccabees 3. On discovering this, so incensed was the wicked king that he no longer confined to his rage to the Jews in Alexandria, Then his hand more heavily upon those who live in the country. He gave orders that they should be quickly collected into one place and most cruelly deprived of their lives. While this was going on, an invidious rumor was uttered abroad by men who had banded together to injure the Jewish, which the purpose of their charge was that the Jews keep them away from the ordinances of the Lord. Now, while the Jews always maintained a feeling of unswerving loyalty toward the king, yet as they worshiped God and observed his law, they made certain distinctions and avoided certain things. Hence, some persons held up the odium, although as they ordained their conversation with works of righteousness, they had established themselves in the good opinion of the world, but all the rest of mankind said was, however, made of no account by the foreigners who said much of the exclusiveness of the Jews with regard to their worship and which they agreed that they were men unsociable, hostile to the king's interests, refusing to associate with him or his troops. By this way of speaking, they brought much odium upon them, nor was this unexpected outward and sudden conflux of people unobserved by the Greeks who lived in the city, concerning men who had never harmed them, yet to aid them was not in their power, since all was oppression around, but they encouraged them in their troubles and expected a favorable turn of offense. He who knows all things will not say they disregard so great a people. Some of the neighbors, friends, and fellow believers of the Jews even called them secretly to their interview, pledged them their assistance, and promised to do their very utmost for them. Now the king, elated with his prosperous fortune, and not regarding the superior power of God, but thinking to be reserved in his present purpose, for the following letter to the prejudice of the Jews, King Ptolemy Philopater, to the commanders and soldiers in Egypt and in all places, health and happiness. I am right well, and so too are my affairs, since our Asiatic campaign, the particulars of which you know, and which by the aid of the gods not lightly given and by our own vigour have been brought to a successful issue according to our expectation. We resolve not with strength of spirit, but with gentleness and much humanity, as it were to nurse the inhabitants of Holy Syria and Phoenicia, and to be their willing benefactors. So, having bestowed considerable sums of money upon the temples of several cities, we proceeded even as far as Jerusalem and went up to honor the temple of these rash beings who never cease from their folly. To outward appearance they are received as willingly, but believe that appearance by their deeds. When we were eager to enter their temple and to honor it with the most beautiful and exquisite gifts, they were so carried away by their own arrogance as to forbid us the entrance, while we, out of our forbearance toward all men, refrain from exercising our power upon them, and thus exhibiting their enmity against us, and alone among the nations lift up their heads against kings and benefactors as men. We unwillingly to submit to anything reasonable. We then, having endeavored to make allowance for the manners of these persons, and on our victorious return, treating all people in Egypt courteously, acted in a manner which was befitting, according bearing no ill will against their kinsmen and Jerusalem, but rather remembering our connection with them and the numerous matters which sincere heart from a remote period entrusted to them. We wish to venture a total alteration of their state by bestowing upon them the rights of citizens of Alexandria, and to enable them to the everlasting rights of our sovereignties. All this, however, they have taken in a very different spirit with their innate malignity. They have spurned the offered and constantly inclining to evil, have rejected the inestimable rights, not only so, but by using speech and by refraining from speech. They oppose the few among them who were heartily disposed towards us, ever deeming that their ignoble course of procedure will force us to do away with our reform. Having then received certain proof that these Jews bear us every sort of evil, we must look forward to the possibility of some sudden tumult among ourselves, and these impious men may turn traitors and barbarous enemies. As soon, therefore, as the contents of this letter become known to you, in that same hour we order those Jews who dwell among you, with wives and children, to be sent to us, vilified and abused in chains of iron, to undergo a death row and ignominious suitable to them. This affected all by the punishment of them in one body. We perceive that we have found the only means of establishing our affairs for the future on the firm and satisfactory basis. Whosoever shall shew a Jew, whether it be an old man, child, or suckling, shall with this whole house be tortured to death. Whoever shall inform against the Jews, besides receiving the property of the person, shall be presented with 2,000 drachmas from the royal treasury shall be made free and shall be crowned. Whatever place shall shelter a Jew shall, when he is hunted for, be put under the ban of fire, and be forever rendered useless to every living being for all time to come. Such was the purport of the king's letter. Maccabees 4. Whenever this decree was received, the people kept up a revelry of joy and shouting as their long had hardened hatred were now to show itself openly. The Jews suffered great throes of sorrow and wept much while their hearts, all things around being lamentable, were set on fire as they bewailed the sudden destruction which was decreed against them, whether home or city or place at all inhabited, and all what streets were there, which their condition did not feel. With wailing and lamentation, they were set up ignominiously by the generals in the several cities, with such stern and pitiless feeling that the exceptional nature of the affliction moved even some of their enemies, disinfluenced by sentiments of common humanity and reflecting upon the uncertain issues of life, shed tears at this their miserable expulsion. A multitude of aged or weak-haired old men were driven along with halting, bending feet, urged onward with the impulse of a violent, shameless force to quick speed. Those who had entered the bridal chamber quietly to enjoy the partnership of marriage, exchange pleasure for misery, and with dust scattered upon their myth or anointed heads were hurried along unveiled, and in the midst of outlandish insults set up with one accord a lamentable cry in lieu of the marriage hymn. Bound and exposed to public gaze, they were hurried violently on board ship. The husbands of these Indians prime of their youthful vigor instead of crowns wore halters round their necks instead of fistlings, and youthful jollity spent the rest of their nuptial days in wailings and saw only the grave at hand. They were dragged along by unyielding chains like wild beasts. Of these some had their necks thrust into the benches of the rowers, while the feet of others were enclosed in hard fetters. The plank of the decks above them barred out the light and shut out the dead on every side, so that they might be treated like traitors during the whole voyage. They were conveyed accordingly in this vessel, and at the end of it arrived at Scythia. The king had ordered them to be cast into the vast hippodrome, which was built in front of the city. This place was well adapted by its situation to expose them to the gaze of all corners into the city, and those who went from the city into the country, just they could hold no communication with his forces there. They were deemed unworthy of any civilized accommodation. When this was done, the king, fearing that their brother in the city of went out and lamented the melancholy distress of his victims, was full of rage and commanded that they should be carefully subjected to the same and not with the treatment. The whole nation was now to be registered. Every individual was to be specific by name, not for that hard servitude of labor which we had did a little before mentioned, but that he might expose them to the before mentioned tortures, and finally, in the short space of a day, might extirpate them by his cruelties. The registering of this man was carried on cruelly, zealously, this from rising of the sun to his going down, and was not brought to an end in 40 days. The king was filled with great and constant joy and celebrated banquets before the temple idols. His erring had far from the truth, and his profane mouth gave glory to idols deaf and incapable of speaking or aiding, and uttered unworthy speeches against the greatest God. At the end of the above-mentioned interval of time, the register brought word to the king that the multitude of the Jews was too great for registration, inasmuch as there were many still left in the land, of whom some were in inhabited houses and others were scattered about in various places, so that all the commanders in Egypt were insufficient for the work. The king threatened them and charged them with taking bribes in order to contrive the escape of the Jews, but was clearly convinced of the truth of what had been said. They said and proved that paper and pens had failed them for the carrying out of their purpose. Now this was an active interference of the unconquerable providence which assists the Jew from heaven. Maccabees 5. Then he called Herman, who had charge of the elephants, who of which altogether fixed in his furious design, he commanded him with a quantity of unmixed wine and handful of incense infused to drown the elephants early on the following day. These 500 elephants were, when infuriated by the continuous drops of frankincense, to be led up to the execution of death of upon the Jews. The king, after issuing these orders, went to his feastings and gathered all those that of his friends and of the army who hated the Jews the most. The master of the elephants, Haman, fulfilled his commission punctually. The underlings appointed for the purpose went on about the eventide and bound the hands of the miserable victims and took other precaution for their security, thinking that the whole race would perish together. The heathen believed the Jews to be destitute of all protection, for chains fitted them about. They invoked the Almighty Lord and sincerely implored with tears their merciful God and Father, ruler of all, Lord of every power, to overthrow the evil purpose which was gone up against them, and to deliver them by extraordinary manifestation from that which was in store for them. The latency so earnest went up to heaven that Haman, who had filled his merciless elephants with copious draughts of mingled wine and frankincense, came early to the palace to certify the king thereof. He, however, who has sent his good creatures sleep from all time by night or by day, thus gratifying whom he wills, diffuse a portion whereof now upon the king. By this sweet and profound influence of the Lord he was held fast to, and thus his unjust purpose was quite frustrated, and his conflicting resolve greatly falsified. But the Jews, having escaped the hour which had been fixed, praised their holy God, and again prayed him who is easily reconciled to display the power of his powerful hand to the overweening Gentiles. The middle of the 10th hour had fell near arrived when the master by bidder, seeing the guests who were bidden collected, came and shook the king. He gained his attention with difficulty, and hinting that the meal time was getting past, talked the matter over with him. The king listened to this, and then turning aside to his potations, commanded the guests to sit down before him. This done, he asked them to enjoy themselves and to indulge in with at this somewhat late hour of the banquet. Conversation grew on, and the king sent for Haman and inquired of him with fierce denunciation why the Jews had been allowed to outlive that day. Haman explained that he had done his eating overnight, and in this he was confirmed by his friends. The king then, with a barbarity exceeding that of Alaris, said that they might thank his sleep of that day. Lose no time and get ready the elephants against tomorrow, as you did before, for the destruction of these accused Jews. When the king said this, the company present were glad and approved, and then each man went to his own home, nor did they employ the night in sleep so much as in contriving cruel mockeries for those deemed miserable. The morning cock had just crowed, and Haman, having harnessed the brutes, was stimulating them in great colonnade. The city crowds were collected together to see the hideous spectacle, and waited impatiently for the dawn. The Jews, restless with momentary suspense, stretched forth their hands and prayed the greatest God in mournful strains against to help them speedily. The sun rays were not yet shed abroad, and the king was waiting for his friends when Haman came to him, calling him help and saying that his desire could now be realized. The king, with the hearing, was astonished at his unwonted exit, and overwhelmed with a spirit of oblivion about everything, inquired the objects of his earnest preparation. But this was the working of that Almighty God who had made him forget all his purpose. Someone and all his friends pointed out the preparation of the animals. They are ready, O king, according to your own strict injunction. The king was filled with fierce anger at this verse, for by the providence of God regarding these things his mind had become entirely confused. He looked hard at Haman and threatened him as follows: your parents and your children were they here to this vow, this large repast they should have furnished not to these innocent Jews whom me and my forefathers loyally has served. Had it not been for familiar friendship and the claims of your office, your life should have gone for theirs. Haman, being threatened in this unexpected and alarming manner, was troubled in visage and depressed in countenance. The friends too stole out one by one and dismissed the assembly multitudes to their respective occupations. The Jews, having heard of these events, praised the glorious God and Kings of Kings, because they had obtained this help too from him. Now the king arranged another banquet after the same manner, and proclaimed an invitation to meet, and he summoned Haman to his presence and said with threats, how often, O wretch, must I repeat my orders to you about these same persons? Once more armed the elephants against tomorrow for the extermination of the Jews, his kinsmen who were reclining with him under and his instability, and thus express themselves, O king, how long do you make trial of us as of men be earth of reason? This is the third time that you have ordered their destruction. When the thing is to be done, you change your mind and recall your instructions, for this cause the feeling of expectation causes tumult in the city. is filled with factions and discontinuity on the part of being plundered. The king, just like another Pahlavis, a prey to the thoughtlessness, take no account of the changes which this monarch had undergone, issuing in the deliverance of the Jews his sword of rulers, and determined forthwith to send them to Hades, crushed by the knees and feet of the elephants. He would also invade Judea and level his towns and with fire and the sword and destroy the temple which he, the Hutton, might not enter and prevent sacrifices ever after being offered up. They joyfully his friends broke up together with his kinsmen and, trusting in his determination, arranged their forces in the most convenient places of the city. Then the master of the elephant urged the beast into an almost maniacal state, drenched them with incense and attacked them with frightful instruments. About early morning, when the city was now filled with an immense number of people in at the hippodrome, he entered the palace and called the king to the business in hand. The king asked him with imperious rage, and he rushed off with the masses along with the elephants with feelings unsoftened and pitiless. He longed to gaze at the hype and rash doom of the above-mentioned Jews, but the Jews, when the elephants went up at the gate, followed by the armed force, and when they saw the dust raised by the throng and heard the loud cries of the crowd, they thought they had come to the last moment of their lives, to the end of what they had tremblingly expected. They gave way therefore to lamentation and moans and kissed each other, to those nearest of kin, to each other hung about, was another next fathers about. Their sons mothered their daughters, and other women held their infants to their breasts, which was seemed their last mate. Nevertheless, when they reflected upon the sweet call before granted them from heaven, they prostrated themselves before God, could remove even the sucking children from the breast and sent out an exceeding great cry, entreating the Lord of all power to reveal himself and have mercy upon those who now lay at the gates of Hades. Maccabees 6. And Eliza, an illustrious priest of the country, who had attained to ranking of the earth, whose life had been adorned with virtue, caused the Presbyters who were about him to cease to cry out to the Holy God and protest, O King, mighty in power, Most High, Almighty, who regulates the whole creation with your tender mercy. Look upon the seed of Abraham, upon the children of the sanctified Jacob, your sanctified inheritance, O Father, now being wrongfully destroyed as strangers in a strange land. You destroyed Pariah with his host of chariots when that not your feet say. Egypt was uplifted with lawless hardihood and loud sounding tongue. Shading the views of your mercy upon the ways of Israel, you did overwhelm him with his proud army, when Sennacherib, the grievous king of the Ashes, glorifying this in his countless hosts, has subdued the whole land with his spears, and was lifting himself against your holy city with boasting wings to be endure you. O Lord, did demolish him and show forth your might to many nations, when the three friends in the land of Babylon in their own will expose their lives to the fire rather than serve vain things. You descend and dewy coolness through the fiery furnace and bring the fire upon all their adversaries. It was you who, when David was so too slender and envy, and as a prey to lions down below, did bring him back against a hope to light when Jonah was spinning away in the belly of the sea. Big monster, you did look upon him, O Father, and recover him to the sight of his own. And now, you who hate in solace, you who do abound in mercy, you who are the protector of all things, appear quickly to those of the race of Israel who are insulted by a cold, lawless Gentiles. If our life has ruined our exalt, is stained with iniquity, deliver us from the hand of the enemy and destroy us. O Lord, by the death which you prefer, let not the vain-minded congregate vain idols at the destruction of your beloved saint. Neither did their God deliver them. You who are all powerful and almighty, O eternal one, behold, have mercy upon us who are being withdrawn from God like creatures by the unreasoning insolence of lawless men. Let the heathen cower before your invisible might. That, O glorious one, who have all power to save the race of Jacob, the whole bands of infants and their parents with tears beseech you, let it be shown to all the nations that you are with us, O Lord, and have not turned your face away from us, but as you said that you would not forget them, even in the land of their enemies, so do you fulfill this saying, O Lord. Now, at the time that Eliza had ended his prayer, the king came along to the hippodrome with the wild beasts and with this tremendous power. When the Jews saw this, they after a loud cry to heaven, so that the enchanters rallies resounded and caused an irrepressible lamentation throughout the army. Then the all glorious, all powerful, and true God displayed his holy countenance and opened the gates of heaven, from which two angels straightful of form came down and were visible to all but the Jews. Then they stood opposite and filled the enemy host with confusion and cowardice, and bound them with immovable fetters, and a cold shudder came over the person of the king, and oblivion paralyzed the vehement of his spirits. They turned back the animals upon the armed forces which followed them, and the animals struck them down and destroyed them. The king's wrath was converted into compassion, and he wept at his own machinations, for when he heard the cries and saw them all on the verge of destruction with tears, he angrily threatened his friends, saying, "You have governed badly and have accepted tyrants in cruelty, and meet your benefactors. You have labored to deprive us of my dominion and my life by secretly devising measures injurious to the kingdom, who has gathered here unreasonable, removing each from his home those who, in fidelity to us, have held the fortresses of the country, who has thus consented to unmerited punishment those who in goodwill towards us from the beginning have in all things surpassed all nations, and who often have engaged in the most dangerous undertakings. Loose the unjust bodies, send them to their homes in peace, and deprecate what has been done. Release the sons of the Almighty living God of heaven, who from our ancestors' times now until now has granted a glorious and uninterrupted prosperity to our affairs. These things he said, and they released the same moment, having now escaped death. Praise God, their holy Savior. The king then departed to the city and called his financiers to him and bade him provide a 7 days quantity of wine and other materials for feasting for the Jewish citizens, and that he should keep a gladsome festival of deliverance in the very place in which they expected to meet with their destruction. Then they who were before despised and near to Hades, yes, rather advanced into he partook the cup of salvation instead of a grievous and lamentable death, who of exaltation and departed out of the place intended for their burial into banqueting booth, seizing their miserable strain of wood. They took up the subject of their fatherland, he made it praise God, their wonder-working Saviour. All goods all waiting were laid aside. They formed dances in token of serene joy. So also the king collected a number of years for the occasions and returned unceasing thanks with much magnificence for the unexpected deliverance afforded him. Those who had marked them out for as for death and for chariot, and had registered them with joy, howled aloud and were with shame, and had the fire of their wishing gloriously down. But the Jews, as we just said, instituted a dance and then gave themselves up for to feasting with thanksgiving and pumps. They made a public ordinances to commemorate this day for generations to come, as long as there should be sojourners there. Thus established this day as days of meat, not for the purpose of drinking or luxury, but because God has saved them. They requested the king to send them back to their homes. They were being invoked from the 25th of Patron to the 4th of FPP, the period of 40 days. The measures taken for their destruction lasted from the 5th of FPP till the 7th, that is 3 days. The ruler over all did during this time manifest for his mercy gloriously, and did deliver them altogether unharmed. They feasted upon the king's provision up to the 14th day, and then asked to be sent away. The king commanded them and wrote the subjoined letter and magnanimous import for them to the commanders of every city. Maccabees 7. The King Ptolemy Philopater to the commanders throughout Egypt and to all who are set over affairs, joy and strength, we too and our children, our and God has directed our affairs as we wish certain of our friends did of malice vehemently urge us to punish the Jews of our wrath in the body with the affliction of a monstrous punishment. They pretended that our affairs would never be in good state till this place, but such, they said, was the hatred borne by the Jews to all the other people. They brought them fitted in grievous chains and slaves, nay, as traitors without inquiry of extermination. They endured to annihilate them. They buckled themselves with a savage cruelty worse than Cynthia custom. For this cause we severely threatened them, yet with the clemency which we are wont to extend to all men, we at length permitted them to live, finding that the God of heaven casts a shield of protection over the Jews so as to preserve them, and that he fought for them as a father always fight for his sons, and taking into consideration their constancy and fidelity toward us and towards our ancestors. We have, as we ought, acquitted them of every sort of charge, and we have dismissed them to their several homes, finding all men everywhere to do them no wrong, or unrighteously without them about the past. For know you that should we conceive any evil design or in any way aggrieve them, we highest God, the ruler of all might. From him there will be no escape as the avengers of such is fair Europe. When they have received this letter, they will not forward to depart immediately. They petitioned the king to be allowed to inflict fitting punishment upon those of their race who have willingly transgressed the holy God and the law of God. They declared that the men who have for their values sake transgressed the ordinances of God would never be faithful to the interests of the king. The king admitted the truth of this reasoning and commanded that full power was given them without warrant or special commission to destroy those who had transgressed the law of God boldly in every part of the king's dominions. Their priest then, as it was made, saluted him with good wishes, and all the people echoed with the hallelujah. They then joyfully departed. Then they punished and destroyed with gold, meaning every polluted Jew that befell in their way, slaying thus in that day above 300 men, and esteeming this destruction of the wicked a season of joy. They themselves, having held fast their God to death and having enjoyed a full deliverance, departed from the city, garlanded with sweet flavor, rush of every kind, uttering exclamation of joy with songs of praise and melodious hymns that thank the God of their fathers, the eternal Savior of Israel. Having arrived at Ptolemais, called from the specialty of the district, rose bearing where the feet in accordance with general which waited for them 7 days. They partook of a banquet of deliverance, for the king generously granted them several the means of securing a return home. They were accordingly brought back in peace, while they gave utterance to becoming thanks, and they determined to keep these days during their sojourn as days of joyfulness. This they registered as sacred upon a pillar, and when they had dedicated the place of their festivity to be one of prayer, they departed unharmed, free, abundant, in joy, preserved by the king's command, by land, by sea, and by river, to and each of his own home. They had more weight than before among their enemies, and were honored and feared, and no one in any way robbed them of their God's goods. Every man received back his own according to inventory. Those who had obtained their receiving them out with the greatest terror, for the greatest God wrought with perfectness wonders for their salvation. Blessed be the Redeemer of Israel to everlasting.